Hey guys, welcome to 10-Minute English with May. And today we are going to continue our lesson on adjective clause. So remember, an adjective clause is simply like an adjective, except it has subject and verb. All right, but its function is to modify nouns and pronouns. And last time we have established that an adjective clause starts with relative pronouns or relative adverbs. So you can see here in the bottom left corner, who, whom, whose. These are used to modify people. Which and that are used to modify things and animals. And remember, which is always non-essential, so it is always used with commas, and that is always essential. It is not used with commas. All right, and for relative adverbs, we have when to modify time, where to modify place, and why to modify reason. Okay, now, today we're going to focus on the case of pronouns. So if you remember from our pronoun lessons, we've established that there are three cases of pronouns. The first is subjective or nominative. And for example, personal pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, we, they. Objective case, it is used as the object of a transitive verb or the object of the preposition. Okay, so of course, most of the time the subjective case would come before verbs. And for objective, they would usually come after verbs or prepositions. Okay, whereas possessive case, like my, your, his, her, that is used as an adjective function. So remember that your possessive case needs to be followed by a noun, like my pen or your friend. Okay, so it is the same with our relative pronouns. The subjective case would be who, an objective case would be whom, and the possessive adjective case would be whose. Okay, so let's look at the example sentences. Number one, for those who want to see spring wildflowers. So who is our relative pronoun? Want to see spring wildflowers, right? So who is the subjective case, and it comes before the verb want. So in this case, why do we use who? Because we're modifying people. The pronoun stands for those people, right? And there will be a guided hike after lunch. So of course, we know that an adjective clause is not a sentence on its own. So it needs to be paired with an independent clause to become a complete complex sentence. And this is something we have talked about before, but just a quick reminder. There is what we call an expletive, and it is adverb function. So adverbs can never be subject. So whenever you see there, know that the sentence structure is verb preceding or coming before the subject rather than the usual subject verb. All right. Okay, and for number two, she is a woman who's respected by everyone. So again, we have our relative pronoun who, right? Who's respected by everyone, right? So the who again is subjective case because she is respected by everyone. So it comes before the verb is respected and modifying the woman. Okay, and remember that who apostrophe S, this is actually contraction. It means who is or sometimes who has. So if we go to number 5, Look at that whose. Mr. Smith, whose son attends Stanford, is our English teacher. So do you see how WHOSE, that is the possessive case, it is not a contraction because Mr. Smith's son or his son attends Stanford. So in this adjective clause, the whose again is functioning as an adjective modifying the subject son. Okay, son attends. All right, so now let's go back to number 3. So J, again, whom I love, right? The whom is the relative pronoun. And because I'm talking about J, which is a person, so of course I use who, whom, whose. But because the subject is I, verb is love, and the whom is the object. So I cannot use who or whose. So you might wonder, hey, I thought you said that whom comes after verbs. And that is true because originally it should be I love Jay and I love him. And then, of course, I have to change the him to whom, a relative pronoun to make an adjective clause. I love whom. But then, because adjective clauses start with the relative pronoun, I now have to move my whom to the beginning of the adjective clause and it becomes whom I love. All right. And for number 4, Jay, for whom I bought flowers, is actually allergic to them. Whoops, right? Or whoopsie daisy. So, whom is my relative pronoun. And in this case, what do I have before this relative pronoun? I have preposition for. So, of course, this whom is functioning as the object of the preposition. I bought flowers for Jay, for him, for whom. All right. So now this is something that is a little bit more advanced. Whenever you have relative pronoun functioning as the object of the preposition, the preposition can actually sometimes be placed at the end of the adjective clause. So sometimes people would rewrite the sentences into J, whom I bought flowers for, is actually allergic to them. So the preposition at the end still requires an object. So sometimes you just have to be careful. You have to check whether there is a dangling preposition at the end of your adjective clause. All right, and our last sentence, Bob, whose fart stinks like crazy, eats a lot of yams, right? So our relative pronoun is whose. So remember, again, this is not contraction. This is possessive adjective, and it is adjective function, right? So in this case, we're talking about Bob's fart stinks like crazy, or his fart stinks like crazy, right? So fart is our subject, stinks is the verb. Okay, so again, let's pay close attention to the punctuation. The first one, in the first sentence, that is essential because you see that there's no comma between those and who. And some of you might go like, hey, May, why is there a comma after flowers? This is something we will address later. This is actually not non-essential inserter comma. This is what we call introducer comma. And we use introducer comma to introduce our actual sentence, our independent clause. So we need to use introducer comma whenever we have a phrase, a word, a dependent clause at the beginning of the sentence. All right. Okay, so number 2, we can see that there's no comma, so that is essential again. For number 3, I have 2 inserter commas, so that's non-essential. Same with number 4, non-essential. Number 5 and number 6, they're all non-essential because they'll come with inserter commas. Okay, and that is it for today. See you next time. Bye-bye.